Hello, welcome to 2023. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Stigma-Free Learning Live. It has been a while since I've recorded one of these live events, but we're back. It's the new year. I hope you all had a restful and recharging holiday and that your New Year's is going well and the start of the school year again after the holidays is going well. I know it can be hard to get back into the swing of things after being off for so long, and but we're back, and we're back to sharing some more resources with you to hopefully make the beginning of the school year a little bit more successful. As it is a brand new year and we are, recording after a while, I thought I would start off again by introducing myself and this live event and giving you a bit more of context for Stigma-Free Learning Live, who the Stigma-Free Society is, and why we're all here today. So if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, this is the first live event back after the holidays, and I am just so excited to be here and to be here with you again and to be sharing some of the incredible resources that we have to offer you and your students and yourselves and all that good stuff. So just to start, my name is Samara. It's so great to share this time with you on Mondays at 12:30 PST. It's a really great way to take a lunch break. If you're doing some professional development, this can really aid in that for you. And I encourage you to use this maybe over your lunch hour if you're looking for something to entertain yourself while you're on your break, or watching it another time and using it as some professional development while you're on prep or something like that, if you're an educator or a school counselor. And this live event is for everyone. So if you're a parent and you kind of just want to learn a little bit more about what Stigma-Free does and the lesson plans that we offer, the things that your students might be learning or your children might be learning in school, welcome, and I hope that you feel that this is a valuable event for you to be watching as well. I never want to feel like this audience is limited to just educators. And as we continue this live event, I am going to start pivoting and doing some exploration of other resources on the Student Mental Health Toolkit. To this point, I have exclusively done lesson plans, and I am going to do a few more lesson plans before I switch over to doing some other forms of content that we have on the toolkit. But I just want to say that I'm going to be expanding this live event and making it a little bit more relevant for all of our audience, because the audience that we have isn't exclusive to educators, though it is a large portion of our viewership and the users of our online resources. So to that end, as I mentioned, the Stigma-Free Society is the host of this live event. I mean, I am the host of the live event, but I am the programs manager for Stigma-Free Society. So who are we? What do we do? If you're new to the organization, if you're new to this live event, I just want to give you a bit of background on us and why we're here and what we hope to do in the world and in different communities and schools. So we have been in existence for over 10 years, and we started as the Bipolar Disorder Society back in 2010. Our president and co-founder, Andrea, has lived experience with bipolar disorder, so she started the organization to start breaking down stigma around bipolar disorder and to share her experience in the hopes of, creating awareness and understanding about other people's lived experiences, and specifically bipolar disorder at the time. But as we expanded and became the Stigma-Free Society, now we talk about stigma of all kinds. We do focus specifically on stigma around mental health, but we are currently working on adapting some of the language on our toolkit to be a little bit more general about stigma. That's kind of the unique thing about our organization, is that we talk about stigma and we look at stigma of all kinds, and we understand that mental health and stigma often intersect and overlap, but we also want to make sure that we are talking about stigma on a kind of a general level as well, and letting people know that they're not alone in their experiences, and that there are resources out there for them if they're feeling stigmatized or they're wanting to learn about stigma or break down their own stigma that they may have towards others. So that's a bit about Stigma-Free. So to introduce myself, again, my name is Samara. The gender pronouns that I use are she and her. And I've been the programs manager at Stigma-Free for coming up on 2 years now. And I love the work that we do. I have a background in education. I have a master's in teaching. I also have a bachelor's degree in equity studies. So talking about stigma and mental health in schools specifically is like really a passion of mine. I also have a professional development certification in early years mental health. So again, the fusion of the passions that I have and the education background that I have is the work that we do at Stigma-Free. So I feel very passionate about these topics, and I hope that that comes through in this live event and in the work that I do and the work that I put out with Stigma-Free. So yeah, that's it. That's my little ramble. That's my little spiel at the top of the live event, and just to kind of say hello and welcome back to all of you and to myself and to school and all of this good stuff. So I'm going to be doing another lesson today just to kind of, kick things off the way that they've been going. And the lesson plan that I'm going to be covering today, you will find on the Student Mental Health Toolkit. So if you are new, the website URL for the toolkit is studentmentalhealthtoolkit.com. Very easy to find. And there you will find all of the incredible resources that we have to offer. So we have downloadable resources, we have lesson plans, we have content about diverse abilities, disabilities, and inclusion. We have the Stigma-Free glossary, which I'm going to do a deep dive into, I think, in my next live event, and a bunch of other really exciting resources. We have a section for parents, guardians, and caregivers, one for the mental health of school staff. Lots of incredible things can be found there. But if you're looking to follow along with what I'm going to be covering today, the lesson plan is panic attacks versus anxiety, so understanding the difference between those two, and that lesson is for grades 8 to 12. So if you are an educator for high school, this is a really relevant lesson for you. If not, I hope you can still take something away from this and learn a little bit more about this conversation and how to talk about this with your students, even if you don't necessarily implement this specific lesson. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up the lesson plan so we can get going. So, as it says in the purpose of the lesson, students may find it difficult to understand how panic attacks and anxiety are different from each other. Overall, anxiety means feeling worried or nervous. We all feel anxiety from time to time, and some anxiety can actually be helpful. So, for example, feeling anxious about a quiz might help us to prepare or study. Anxiety disorders are one of those common mental health challenges experienced by young people. So, anxiety, I can speak from personal experience having generalized anxiety disorder. It's a bit of a tricky conversation to have because, like this definition says, it can be helpful. Like feeling that nervousness, feeling that anxiety, it usually means that you really care about something. And sometimes that anxiety can help propel us into doing more work and feeling really good about the stuff that we're putting out. But if anxiety becomes chronic, that's when it becomes an issue. And if it's debilitating and if it's stopping you from doing things rather than being the catalyst for you to do things, then it's something to look at in a little bit more detail. So that's kind of what this lesson plan is trying to get across, that idea of knowing what anxiety is, knowing what panic attacks are, and how to kind of differentiate what those things are and how they feel. So there are different types of anxiety disorders and panic disorders. And panic disorders are one of those kinds of anxiety disorders. There's also separation anxiety, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, and specific phobias, so lots of different kinds. Panic attacks are relatively short and intense feelings of anxiety or dread that are combined with physical symptoms such as dizziness, racing heart, shortness of breath, shaking, nausea, sometimes sweaty palms. I've actually had panic attacks, and what it feels like for me is kind of this buildup of all this anxious energy that kind of needs to escape my body, and that manifests in a lot of these physical symptoms. They often trigger catastrophic thinking, like I'm going crazy, I'm going to die. It can actually feel like you're having a heart attack or like there's something physically wrong with you when you are having a panic attack. A key component of panic disorder is a fear of the future and unexpected panic attacks. The purpose of this lesson is to explain to teenagers and young people what anxiety and panic attacks are and how they can recognize the difference. So the curriculum competencies covered for this are health and physical education, and language arts and arts education, and career education. So lots of different areas that we cover in this one. So as always, we have a video that the students will watch at the beginning, which is 5 differences between panic between panic and anxiety. So a really great way to kind of start the conversation around the distinction between these two things, how to determine the distinction, and just to kind of get them thinking about it in a way that's engaging. So after you watch the video with the students, we encourage you to use some of these guiding questions to just kind of understand where they're at with their learning and to kind of spark a conversation around this topic. So some of the questions you could ask are, what are some examples of situations where anxiety might occur? How common are anxiety disorders? What is generalized anxiety disorder? How common are panic attacks? What is a panic attack? So again, kind of doing these like checks for learning and ensuring that the students know what you're talking about and know what they, just looked at and watched and learned in that video. So now breaking it down into like the step-by-step of the lesson. So again, you're going to start by showing the video of 5 differences between anxiety and panic. The link is there. And this, as it says in the lesson, is an awesome animation that clearly explains the difference between panic and anxiety, but in an engaging and interesting way. Then you're going to use those guiding questions to spark a conversation with your students. Next, you are going to use our comic, which is Panic Attacks and Anxiety. And you can kind of project that onto a screen, use a smartboard, however that suits you best. And that's linked in the lesson plan, like the body of the lesson plan. So allow students to predict what will happen in the comic before they flip the pages. So kind of going through it one page at a time and maybe making some predictions as they go through, talking about it, engaging with it. So next you're going to discuss the curricular objectives of the lesson with your students. So share with them that recognizing the signs and symptoms of anxiety and panic will be helpful to have empathy for friends, peers, and people in the community who may be experiencing these symptoms. It also may really help them to understand the difference inside of them, and if they've experienced anxiety before, if they've had a panic attack before, it will kind of help to do that differentiation in themselves as well as doing it for other people. So the follow-up activity after going through the comic would be to create their own comic. So divide the students into 2 groups and use a think, pair, share to discuss strategies and solutions that might be appropriate for the comic to show the difference between anxiety and panic attacks. So enlarge the below comic strip template for students to use and to create their own comics. So start by kind of engaging with them, getting them to think about what they might want to write about, what they might want to draw, how they may want to present this information in the form of a comic, but then get them to break up into groups and like actually work on those. So you can, depending on how many students you have, divide them into 2 groups, smaller groups. This could also be an individual activity if you would like. However you want to present this to the students, however you want them to work together. We encourage collaboration always. It's nice to have ideas to bounce off each other. But again, if you would like them to do it individually, if you think that might be more beneficial, that is also obviously very much an option for you. So the lesson closure, when the project is finished, display or have the students share their comics with the class and talk about what they've learned about anxiety disorders. Allow students time to explore mental health education section of the Student Mental Health Toolkit for more information and resources. So we do have an entire section on the toolkit about mental health education. So if you want to engage with them a little bit more, if you want them to learn a little bit more about these topics, you can go to that section and have them explore it on their own. That's a really great way to engage with more of the content that we have to share. So then the last page of the lesson is the kind of outline of the comic, so they can draw in the little blocks and have text there. You can also print multiple pages that they can use. We also always have like a printable, downloadable version, which is black and white. So if you're worried about colored ink, you can use that to print off this page. And that's like a really fun and engaging way for them to kind of talk about what they've learned, share what they've learned, and kind of engage with the content, but making it interesting and fun. We always like to do some type of fun hands-on activity with the lesson plans that we put out. So that's what this one is hoping to do. So a bit of a shorter one today, but I hope you found this helpful. I like this lesson. I think it's a really great way to talk about anxiety, very front of mind for everybody these days. I think a lot more students are understanding about what anxiety is, how to know if they're anxious, how to know what anxiety versus a panic attack is, but this lesson kind of solidifies all of that for the students. So that's it for me. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in today for Stigma-Free Learning Live. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm going to be back on my regular bi-weekly upload schedule now that we're back from the holidays. So expect another live event in 2 weeks from now. And I really hope to see you there, and I really hope that you're having a great start to the school year.